Hey, what's up everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the Adam Eisen Show. We're headed into week 4 of the NFL season, and I am back to fill you in on all the sporting news. It's episode 7, and the Packers are 2-1. Davante Adams is out in Las Vegas struggling, and the Bears only have 23 total completions this season. We're going to talk about all that and much more in today's episode, so let's go ahead, start it off today with my main segment that I like to call Trouble in Paradise. Now, what I'm alluding to here, it's Green Bay Packers, it's the Las Vegas Raiders, and I am not even necessarily coming after Davante Adams or anything like that, because obviously him and Aaron Rodgers are best friends. He's said very nice things even after leaving the Packers. Where I'm going after is all the analysts throughout the offseason. All the analysts the first couple weeks of the year. They were all saying that Rodgers would be on the wrong side of this divorce. That Rodgers was going to plummet. Doesn't have a star guy anymore. He's not going to be able to do it without Adams. Now, this is the second time in the last 4 to 5 years I have heard the so-called professionals say that Aaron Rodgers isn't going to be able to do it without this guy. First, it was with Mike McCarthy back 3.5 seasons ago when he was fired. People were saying, oh, McCarthy was that guy. We'll get to see how good Aaron Rodgers really is without his main head coach that he's had his whole career. Rodgers has gone 39-10 in the 3 seasons since Mike McCarthy, and it is obvious, especially with the way McCarthy is managing and coaching the Dallas Cowboys, that Rodgers and the Packers came out on the better side of that divorce. McCarthy's Cowboys lead the league in penalties and have since he got there. Dak Prescott, don't know a lot about him, don't know what's up with him. He's injured right now, but never been a guy that I loved. Banged up offensive line, not nearly as good as it used to be, and McCarthy won't just switch to Pollard. It's what I went through for 10 years in Green Bay, and now Dallas is going through it. Now, this whole offseason, everybody was saying Rodgers would be on the wrong side of this divorce. He can't get it done. Well, now we're sitting here. The Packers, they have a top 5 defense, just like I said they would. Romeo Doubs, Rasul Douglas, these guys who were undrafted or getting let go of teams last year or the year before, they are stepping up and making major plays for the Packers against teams like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who I think the Packers are going to have to play to get to the Super Bowl. Took years to get over the Mike McCarthy hump. People said Rodgers couldn't get along with LaFleur. It's not going to work out. Doesn't know how much say he's going to get. Too much drama, this and that. McCarthy was obviously the problem there. And people trying to say that either Davante Adams or Aaron Rodgers being a problem or not being able to do it on their own is ridiculous. Rodgers is a Hall of Fame talent. He can do it without a top receiver. Look at 2015. Almost made it to the NFC Championship game. The Raiders are now sitting at 0-3. Davante Adams is reportedly frustrated with the way things are going with the team. He has 17 total receptions, 189 yards, and 3 touchdowns this season. So he's getting a touchdown a game, but he's not getting nearly the yards he used to. Again, I'm going to circle back around to the beginning of this segment. This is not to hate on Davante Adams, and it's not to come after him, because he has never come after the Packers. He has only had good things to say. This is for all the analysts, the Colin Cowherds, the Skip Baylesses, all those people who said that Rodgers was not going to be able to do it without Adams, that Minnesota was going to easily win the NFC North this year. Well, the Packers just went down to Tampa with so-called no wide receivers, and they beat the GOAT, Tom Brady. That's all I got to say there. If you're going to keep doubting the Packers, if you're going to keep doubting Aaron Rodgers, I think that speaks more about you than it says about Rodgers. He's proved himself in every category time and time again. And now, again, his second divorce he's gone through, the first with Mike McCarthy, the second with Davante Adams. He is getting the better side of both of those. Flipping over to another part of the NFC North, the Packers' big rivals, the Chicago Bears. I've had a couple segments about the Bears so far this year, including one in the preseason. And what I really harped on in the preseason was the lack of offensive weapons the Bears have. They are a black and white team in a digital world straight up. And I'll explain what that means. The Bears, they still like to live in 1985 with Mike Ditka having a great defense, all this. They're not transforming with the times. They're not becoming an offensive team. They're paying Roquan Smith, a linebacker, way too much money when linebackers have not won a Super Bowl for someone in 15 years. A linebacker's not going to go win you a Super Bowl, but an A1 receiver like Cooper Kupp or Davante Adams, that would make the Bears scary. Justin Fields, he looks good. He looked good in the preseason. One of the preseason games, he had 150 yards and 3 touchdowns, completed almost all of his passes. You got other guys across the league. The Chargers, they go out, they set up Justin Herbert, even Zach Wilson up in New York with the Jets. The Jets have done everything in their power to go out and set up Zach Wilson through the draft, through free agency, such like that. The Chicago Bears have done none of that. Through 3 weeks of this NFL season, the Bears, they have completed only 23 passes. 14 teams had more than that in just week 3 alone. 23 completions Justin Fields has had in 3 weeks. That's a guy that needs to be getting the ball in his hands more. It all goes back to not having offensive weapons. They're having to rely on their defense, and they need to trade Roquan Smith. Get pieces for yourself. It's an offensive league now. Sure, you're 2-1, but that won't last, especially heading into this postseason. One of their wins came against the Trey Lance-led 49ers in Week 1. We all know how Week 1 goes. Anyone can win. There's no film yet. It was a flood game. Literally, the field was flooded. And the other win came against the Texans, they were barely able to beat 23-20 at home in Chicago. Their loss came against the Packers, the only good team they've played. And they got railed, annihilated, bullied. You can't expect, unless you have a top 2, top 3 defense, you're not going to be able to go stop a great offense in this league. The day and age has come where there's no going out and stopping that best offense. You have to go out there and you got to keep up with that best offense. Against good teams and great defenses, you have to have a good offense, or you can't keep up in today's league. It's as simple as that. The Bears, Chicago, they've got a lot to be excited for so far, and I'm sorry to come on here and humble all y'all, even though I hate the Chicago Bears being a Packers fan. Chicago Bears are sitting 2-1. It's not going to last for long. I see them. Their over-under before the season was set at 6.5 wins by Vegas. I still think hitting the under is a very real possibility. Their schedule starts to ramp up, gets a lot more intense. Still going to have to play the Packers again, the Vikings twice. That's just in division. And the Lions twice. The Lions are a better team than the Bears. They've set themselves up well this year. Chicago Bears, trade Roquan Smith. Get out of the black and white world, move to the digital world, start getting offense. Point blank, period. Now, this topic, I want to go to last night's Thursday night football game. Last week, after Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa took the hit that he did, I wasn't going to say anything. They let him come back in the game. I didn't plan on saying much about it because these guys are professionals. The doctors know what they're talking about. And the NFL's not going to open themselves up to that many allegations, that many lawsuits, things like that. But last night, After what happened to Tua last night, there's no denying that there is a problem in place. The hit last night he took was devastating, and if you all don't know what's happening, I wouldn't go recommend looking up what's happened to him over the last 5 days of his life. Or the last 5 days of his life, last weekend they were playing the Buffalo Bills. He got absolutely pummeled, slammed to the ground. He tried to get back up. He fell back down, was stumbling everywhere, got taken out of the game right before the end of the first half, and was for some reason allowed to come back in that game, and he led the fourth quarter game-winning, all that drives against against Buffalo Bills. Now, last night they cleared him to play just 4 days after he took that injury. And he got thrown to the ground hard, but it was an average hit NFL players take. His body became stiff, and he started mingling his fingers in front of his face. It was just very hard and devastating to see. Me, my roommates, everybody I was watching it with, we were speechless, didn't know how to react. He got put down on a stretcher, was immediately taken to the hospital. Thank God he had control over all of his extremities. He was conscious. He was cleared to fly back home with the team that night. So it's great to hear nothing extremely serious is going to come of Tua. But at this point, someone has to take responsibility. The coach deflected nonstop when he was asked about it, saying he stood by his decision. And obviously, you can't come out and say, oh yeah, maybe we should have looked at that a little bit more. He come out, says he stands by his decision that he played Tua, and basically it's just Tua got extremely lucky. Multiple neurological doctors were coming out before the game, during the game, and after the game saying Tua should not be touching the field right now. He had brain damage, he had back damage, ankle injury. To go out there and risk it the way he did in week 4 just wasn't smart. We've seen organizations in the past, and this is the only reason I think the Miami Dolphins could have messed up. We've seen organizations in the past, like the Chargers with Tyrod Taylor. If you all know what I'm talking about, Tyrod Taylor, a couple years ago, it was week 1 of the season. He came in, he was balling. About halfway through the third quarter, halfway through the third quarter, he got injured, come out, something wrong with his rib, and the next week, the doctor was just going to shoot him up. It was all going to be okay. That doctor missed. Ended up causing a lot of internal damages to Tyrod Taylor and really messed up his career. That's where we're at with Tua at the moment. Tua could have never played football again after last night. The NFLPA already said this morning they're exploring every legal possibility against the NFL and against the Miami Dolphins, which I think is completely justified. Tua shouldn't have been cleared to play on that field. And if anything more comes from this, which it will, it's going to pull the NFL back down into where they were a few years ago when that concussion movie came out and all the reports were coming out, this and that. It's going to drag them back down. They're trying to get away, but the shield is not going to be able to stay protected forever against this. I want to transition. I was going to talk about the Dolphins and Eagles together, but the Dolphins ended up losing last night to the Bengals, 27-15. It was a great game other than Tua getting injured. Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, my God, does he deserve an apology from me and from so many people? He is balling. He's back. He looked better than Jamar Chase did, but Jamar still, he always does this thing. Jamar can always break one loose. But as I said, I was going to talk about the Eagles too, and I want to say this. I had a segment about the Eagles before the season started, and it was basically breaking down the NFC East and what I thought was going to happen. And I said the Eagles are going to run away with the NFC East. They're going to win 12, 13 games. After seeing what they've done, Hurts, Brown, Smith, Sermon, all these offensive weapons, the defensive weapons, just everywhere loaded. After seeing what they've done, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that the Eagles are the best team in the NFL. They've got to be. They're definitely the best team in the NFC right now in my eyes. They're built the best depth-wise. Bucks and Packers both have to worry seriously about injuries throughout this year. The Eagles are built top to bottom very well. And since the last 3 to 4 years has been kind of down, especially since Carson Wentz is gone, Jalen Hurts, he's that dude. He's got that dog in him. I love watching him play. And I'm sure my whole family is Washington Commanders fans, so they're not going to like to hear this. But the Eagles have a real shot to go out and win their second Super Bowl in the last 10 years. God, that would be awesome to see. Purely, I like when teams that don't have a lot of historical success can finally get their rudders moving, get going. That's what the Bengals are doing. They're getting moving. They're just churning away draft picks, trades, signings. Slowly but surely get the right coach put in place, the right quarterback. Jalen Hurts, he's top quarterback in this league. He's top 10. You cannot doubt him. And there's another team in the league. I put the Bills lost last week into the Dolphins. I still put them as one of the best teams in the NFL. Last weekend, it purely came down to the Bills' entire secondary being hurt. Their whole secondary combined for a total 3 NFL starts before. So they didn't have any experience. They didn't know what they were doing. They were going up against Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Tua was balling. What are you going to do? They went from the best defense in the NFL by far to middle of the pack very quickly. You can never underestimate injuries in this league where I'm going. Injuries, I said with the Bucks, the Packers too. The Bucks having wide receiver injuries this past weekend helped a ton for the Packers. You can never underestimate injuries in this league. It's the reason the Bills lost last weekend. It's probably the reason the Bucks lost last weekend. It's the reason that Miami lost last night. If Tua was still in the game, that would have been a lot closer. Granted, Teddy Bridgewater, he does deserve some love. I love Teddy Bridgewater. He's just a great backup quarterback at this point. He's a Mitchell Trubisky type player. Great backup guy, great middle of the pack. But what team in the league wants a middle of the pack quarterback? Now, the last segment I want to get to today before we get to the picks of the week and then get on out of here is I have to talk about Dallas at every single week at this point, because every week they've got an owner and a GM and a head coach that goes out and does some stupid shit. Cooper Rush, he's obviously been balling. Been doing good for the team, leading them to wins. And Jerry Jones, for some reason, after just paying Dak all of this money, cannot keep his mouth shut. We talked about this a few weeks ago. I think Jerry Jones is turning into a late version of Al Davis. Well, he's already turned into a late version of Al Davis. Al Davis, basically, he couldn't keep his mouth shut. He was arrogant. He thought he was cocky. He had false optimism. This goes back to that 1 + 1 = 3 BS. Jerry Jones has complete false optimism in his team. And the fact that he came out and said there could be a legitimate QB battle between Cooper Rush and Dak Prescott. Dak, the guy you just went and paid all of this money to. Richard Sherman last night on the Thursday Night Football broadcast said it the best, and I agree with him. It's not a QB battle because Dak gets paid way too much damn money. In no situation can you justify not bringing Dak Prescott back. It would be so ridiculously hard. And I know Mike McCarthy's not going to be able to make that decision. He doesn't know a good quarterback from a tree. Jerry Jones, if I could beg him to just do one thing, keep his mouth shut or sell the damn team. He does the weekly radio shows on Tuesday. He's constantly trying to involve himself with team decisions, trying to be the guy. I understand it's Jerry's world and he's got all this money and this and that. His way has not worked in 25 years. It can't be Jerry's way anymore. And the Dallas Cowboys, they need to get a head coach in there that won't let it be Jerry's way. And I think Sean Payton is the perfect guy for that. This upcoming offseason, without a doubt, Mike McCarthy needs to be fired, and they need to go out and get themselves Sean Payton. He's a legendary head coach who's coming from a legendary franchise. Sean Payton, he would inherit the offensive line, middle of the pack. Defense, middle of the pack. Dak Prescott, B-, C+ quarterback. But you're inheriting a good team, and with a good coach who's not going to let his team commit double-digit penalties in every game, the team gets a lot better. When you're not giving up 150 yards and yellow flags a game, it changes the outcome a lot, let me tell you. Moving on to the bets of the week before we get on out of here. The bets of the week, I've got 5 games. I'm just bringing you all the spreads for this, just the money lines for this week. No spreads. First game, Seahawks at the Lions. Seahawks, they're rocking Geno Smith, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. Got all these guys. They haven't won since the first week of the season. The Detroit Lions, they were on Hard Knocks this past offseason. Motor City Dan Campbell really seems to be inspiring something up in Detroit. Me and my family also picked this for our survivor pool, but we're going Detroit Lions money line. You're going to want to bundle that with Patriots at Packers. Packers money line. Hammer it. Matt Jones seeked a second opinion earlier this week on his hand injury. That most of the time means that the player is going to require surgery. He's wanting to see if he's able to avoid surgery to be able to come back earlier. It's going to be Brian Hoyer playing quarterback for them. He's experienced, but it's in Lambeau Field at 425, America's game of the week. The Packers hammer it. The Jaguars, wow, look at the Jaguars. They've done good so far. They're 2-1 so far this season, and they're heading into Philly to face the 3-0 Philadelphia Eagles. Jacksonville, I love that the tide might be turning. They've got Trevor Lawrence finally doing his job. I don't think it'll be enough to beat the best team in the NFL. The Eagles look simply built different and are ridiculously good. You gotta hammer Eagles money line. Then we're going Sunday Night Football. Chiefs at the Bucks. The Bucks were still looking like they're gonna have a lot of receiver issues. This is a hard game to pick, but just like I said when I picked the AFC West, I cannot knock the Kansas City Chiefs off the mountain, off the throne, until they knock themselves off the throne. So for that reason only, I've got to go with Mahomes. I've got to go with Valdez-Scantling, Juju Smith-Schuster, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Eric Bieniemy, all these guys. I got to go with the Chiefs. Chiefs at Bucks. Rams at 49ers, the last pick of this 5-game spread. It's a tough game. It's going to be at San Francisco. I've said it all year. I think San Francisco has one of the most talented, if not the most talented, roster in the whole league. They've got one of the best coaches, possibly better than Sean McVay. The Rams, they're just rolling at this point. They look good. Cooper Kupp is doing great. And with Jimmy G just getting thrusted into this starting lineup, he knows what he's doing. But Jimmy G, we know, is a 50-50 ball every week. It's on Monday Night Football. The Rams perform in primetime. I've got to hammer Rams money line there. So the 5 bets to roll it all up into a nice pretty bow parlay. We're going Lions against the Seahawks, Packers against the Patriots, Eagles against the Jaguars, Chiefs against the Bucks, and Rams against the 49ers. Thank you all so much for tuning in to another edition of The Adam Eisen Show. We've got a big weekend in sports coming up, so be sure not to miss out and get your bets in before time. Until next time, peace.